Hey guys, Yama Killer here. Before we get into the meat of the video, which is going over my Legacy Showcase tournament overview, I wanted to say that I only get to go through a little bit of my Legacy Showcase as I lost some of the files for the replays to my other computers, switching computers as I had recently gotten a new one. Because of this, we're only going to be going over the first two matches within this video, but I wanted to still put it out as a feeler of if people would like this sort of content, me reviewing big tournaments that I play in where I run deep and have interesting decisions within the games and in deck building. Hope you guys like the video, and if you like it, make sure to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitch and Twitter in the description below as per usual, and tell me in the comments if you like the video, like what you see, and I'll do some more content if you guys like it. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the video. Okay guys, we're here with a look over our Legacy Showcase tournament. I ended up getting top 4 in this tournament. I wanted to go over my matches along with my deck list and some of my preparation for this tournament and talk about it. First, I did not prepare for this tournament nearly as much as most other people probably did, but I enjoyed the Legacy format and did play like at least a league of this deck list every single day, basically leading up to it for like a week or two. I played a couple of different decks, tried Mono Blue Karn Echoes, which I top-8'd the Legacy Showcase qualifier to be able to play the Showcase. And then found it not to be particularly good versus Delver. Then I tried out Delver and found I liked being able to make a lot of decisions. And Delver lets you make a lot of decisions. I thought I wasn't going to be that good in the mirrors, but played them enough where I thought I felt fine. I top-8'd like a challenge with this deck list, and I enjoyed it a lot. Basically, you have a bunch of 1-mana cantrips and Brainstorm, Ponder, Preordain to facilitate finding all the cards that you want. You have counter spells and Daze, Force Negation, Force of Will. It's ways to interact with your opponent. Dreadhorde Darkness is basically like a 2-mana Planeswalker. You get to draw like an extra card every single turn if you had played a cantrip, or you just get to like close the game out really quickly by like Bolt, basically Bolt, Snap, Bolt, except for Bolt, Dreadhorde Darkness, Bolt. And I made the decision to play a couple basics in my deck to be better in the Delver mirror. And usually that involves cutting all the green cards except for Oko. But I decided to play Hooting Mandrills because I found it really good in the mirror and wanted a couple cards for it. Played some Young Pyromancers, Delvers, and Okos to fill out my threats. My sideboard is just a mismatch of what's good against the metagame. You know, Pyros, blue, Blazing Volleys for Elves, Cultists for control, Null Rod for random artifacts, Surgical, Forests, and all these other cards for some combo decks. So let us get into reviewing our games. Okay, we're now going to be getting into the Legacy Showcase matches. This is my round 1 against Into Play. Into Play is a known green post player, basically only plays that. We're going to go over like step by step. Opponent chooses to play first. They take a while to set up because they're setting up recording software. I see this opening hand and I think to myself, my opponent plays Elvish Reclaimer 4 of it in their main deck. If they happen to have an Elvish Reclaimer start, I'm going to have Lightning Bolt for it. If they don't, I need to find Wasteland. I can preordain into it and set up a Dreadhorde Darkness to start getting my engine going. We have 2 good threats that aren't necessarily easy for them to deal with. And I feel like we have most of our bases covered besides having a Wasteland. And we even have 3 mana, so we can find Oko and we can like continue to get things going. So I decided to keep this hand, even though I think it's more on the lower end of hands that I could have kept because of the fact that I don't have Wasteland. But the fact that I have an answer to Elvish Reclaimer, have a way to find a Wasteland, have a way to get my engines going, made me want to keep it, even though there's no Force and there's no Wasteland. So let's start. Opponent decides to go Forest, pass the turn, which I was just like, I was ecstatic. And then obviously you see my first draw step, I'm just like over the moon. I'm just like, okay, Forest pass, do nothing. I have Wasteland. They mulligan to 6. So I'm just like, okay, I can preordain, try and find like a Force of Will, or even just more Wastelands. I can get Dreadhorde Darkness going fairly easily. They're not even playing a Cloud Post turn 1. I don't have to even use my Lightning Bolt on an Elvish Reclaimer yet. We're like in the golden. I feel great about this game after that Wasteland draw. We go get Volk, preordain. Preordain, I see Daze, Lightning Bolt. I believe I bottom the Lightning Bolt and top the Daze, which I end up doing. Makes it so any random like 2-drop doesn't necessarily get through. They played another Forest. They decide to play... What do they decide to play? Green Sun Zenith for 1. I actually like Green Sun Zenith for 1 resolve, because I know basically the only thing they're going to go get is Elvish Reclaimer, and I have Elvish Reclaimer locked up with this Lightning Bolt. So I'm just like, okay, let that resolve, save days for something more important down the line. They have like some cards like Ramanap Excavator, they have possibly Green Sun Zeniths down the line. I think this days has more value, and I just have a Lightning Bolt to lock up this Elvish Reclaimer, so it's not too big of a deal. I draw Delver's Secrets, which is perfect, because I already planned on using Lightning Bolt this turn instead of getting down a 2-drop. And playing Daze on the previous turn makes so I can't get a 2-drop down guaranteed, and I wanted to be able to possibly draw a cantrip or something else to do with this Daze, even possibly draw a force of some sort. It allows me to use the Daze. If it doesn't actually counter anything, I can use it to pitch to a force of will. Sorry for stopping at some points. I have a bit of a cough, just a little bit of phlegm in my throat. But yeah, so here I'm just going to play Lightning Bolt, Delver's Secrets. Bolt the Elvish Reclaimer, pass the turn. Opponent decides to play Misty Rainforest, fetch, do nothing for their turn. I'm ecstatic again. I'm just like, I gotta try and flip this Delver. Still have this Daze. I gotta play like Dreadhorde Arcanist. If I find something to flip the Delver like a cantrip, I get to go wild with that. So we find another Wasteland, which while it doesn't flip the Delver, I drew Wasteland, so that's great for me. So I'm not too concerned. If I draw a cantrip, I have to think about between playing Young Pyromancer and Dreadhorde Arcanist. As playing Young Pyromancer allows me to get a quicker clock, as the cantrip will then put 3 power onto the board. But obviously, without finding a cantrip, I'm more than happy to play Dreadhorde Arcanist. I think to myself a while, do I want to play Wasteland or Flooded Strand? And I don't actually remember what I end up doing, but I have to decide, do I want to conceal Wastelands? Or do I want to play a Wasteland in case they have something like Crop Rotation and be able to Wasteland a Crop Rotationed land? Or like play this Flooded Strand to conceal possible the possibility that I do have Wastelands in my deck, or not in my deck, in my hand. And I decide to play Wasteland, pass the turn. This match is fairly uneventful. You'll come soon to see as my opponent does not play any Cloud Post in their mono green Cloud Post deck. I do not flip again. I go like, okay, I have double Young Pyromancer. I can decide to attack with my Dreadhorde Arcanist, Preordain, try and find something else to do with some cantrips and start getting my engine going. Or I could be really aggressive and go like, I want to close out this game very quickly. I decide to close out the game fairly quickly. Go play Young Pyromancer, Preordain, try and find a Force of Will to complement my Daze. Try to win that way, because I don't see them doing anything particularly exciting over this next turn, because of the fact that like it's hard for them to like get up to 6 mana for a prime time or do anything with like Cloud Post, because they don't have the Cloud Post in play yet. I find a second Daze, which I'm pretty happy with, even though it's not a Force of Will. They Crop Rotation, that's fine. They can't actually get up to being able to cast a Primetime with something like a Cavern of Souls here, because they need to go get a post. So they decide to play Primetime here. I Daze it, because I have one of my 2 Dazes. I obviously have infinite ways to deal damage, and they know they're getting Wastelanded, and I have the second Wasteland, so they're going to end up losing this game. I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on the board, with another 3 from the Lightning Bolt, 13, with a possible flip up to 15. So yeah, the game's basically over for them, and it's pretty straightforward how this game played out. The next game is like significantly worse for my opponent, and there's not much really to say about it. You'll just see my opening hand. I just have Wasteland plus Surgical Extraction. I decided to board in Surgicals because I wanted to take out my Dazes on the draw, because I thought I wasn't going to be tagging Elvish Reclaimer. I wasn't going to be tagging Expedition Map. I wasn't going to be tagging Pithing Needle. All those things will come down, and playing into play, they almost always play around Daze. So, yeah, I board in the Surgicals, have the Dream of Wasteland plus Surgical in my opening hand. They play Cloud Post on turn 1. I just Wasteland them, Surgical them. There are other minor decisions that I make in this game, but to the extent that they matter is basically none, because they can't ramp in their ramp deck. Their hand is like non-functional. They have a Carpet of Souls, a Primetime, and a Ulamog. They have no green mana, so the Carpet of Souls or the Carpet of Flowers could potentially get them out of it. But They basically just don't draw green mana this game. I draw Force of Will early, so I can just force the Carpet of Flowers. It's going to take forever for them to do anything. I'm going to get Oko down. They're just going to, like, lose the game. That's basically what ends up happening this game. Like, you know, I've got some other things like having to flip these Delvers, and I think I mess up a couple times with my Delver flips along with my and against, like, a Tabernacle they play. But besides that, like, it doesn't really matter all that much. The main thing to get away from this game is that I played Wasteland, I Surgical their Cloud Post, and their deck is going to be fairly non-functional for the rest of the game. So let's just move on to the next one. Not much more to say about this game. Now, round 2, I'm playing against Wombo Combo, 15-year-old grinder on Magic Online. He could either be playing Delver, or he could be playing, Snow. Those are the two things I put him on. So I thought to myself, okay, this hand seems pretty balanced against both. You know, we'll brainstorm, try and fix things up depending on what the matchup is, and if it is Delver, we've got Chain Lightning plus Dreadhorde Darkness. Pretty happy about that. If it's Snow, brainstorm can, you know, try and fix some of this stuff up. Game 1 does not go particularly well for me. Opponent plays Arkham's Astrolabe. They've got all their mana going. My Wastelands are basically going to do nothing for the rest of the game. I decide to shuffle this, I believe. Oh no, I decided to not shuffle. Oh wait, yes. I decided to not shuffle this, I realize, for a couple reasons. I thought about this. I actually don't think about it for a while, but now that I think back on it, I actually think it's correct to not shuffle. We have the potential to Wasteland something. Press not the invite. What do you mean? Oh, what? So, okay, so my opponent is playing Snow. There's a potential that they naturally draw a dual land and have to play it out, and the Wasteland's good there. I'm going to fetch away the second Wasteland. So I'm not going to be drawing 2 of them. And I need a third land for this Oko. And the third land also allows me to hardcast a Force of Negation, as well as being able to play a Dreadhorde Arcanist and potentially double force them on what they do. And I believe we're going to have a difficult decision coming up on the next turn, where I decide to Force of Will their Swords to Plowshares that they play on my Dreadhorde Arcanist. I decide to force it, they force back, and I decide to let it go, which I'm not sure was correct. It ends up being, like, tricky because if I decide to force pitching my Force of Negation, I believe, rather than my Brainstorm, if I remember correctly. I may be misremembering that. But I believe that there is... So they Swords. I decide to force pitching my Force. And I decided to, I think for a while on it, because I think to myself, okay, if I force pitching this Brainstorm with the Force of Will, and they force back, am I going to be willing to force again? Or do I want to just try and get this Oko down and try to use Oko as my way to win? The only one Ponder in my yard, and the fact that I'm losing my Brainstorm to my Force, I feel like I need a lot of things to go right for me, and if they just happen to have another removal spell, it's pretty bad for me. They force pitching an Uro, which makes me think that it's possible that this Dreadhorde Arcanist is staying alive past this turn. If they have cards like Ponder, Brainstorm, they're almost surely going to have 4 Swords and like 3 to 4 Abrupt Decay / Assassin's Trophies. If this is the case, and I like whiff on my Ponder, and I have to end up forcing pitching everything because I need to beat their Force, the game basically ends because I can't really do anything. But, so I decide to say, okay, I'll force once. If they force back, kind of sucks. My point on forcing once is if they don't force back, then I get at least a turn out of this Dreadhorde Arcanist. So I'm at least going to be card neutral based on getting the Ponder. And if they do force back, you know, we traded a Force for a Force. And I still have this Oko. So if I'm at least card neutral with the potential of them not having anything, and then I get to, you know, just run the tracks with them with this Oko plus this Dreadhorde Arcanist, it's going to be great for me. But maybe based off of but like, I don't know that they have a Force. And if I'm forcing pitching the Brainstorm and I whiff on the Ponder, it's like incredibly bad for me, and the Dreadhorde Arcanist essentially does nothing. I could also force pitching the Oko and decide to just go like, okay, this makes it so my Ponder can find either a Cantrip, an Oko, possibly like a Young Pyromancer or Dreadhorde Arcanist, and we have Brainstorm to try and like fix up our hand. So that's like that's a potential thing that I could have done. I'm not, maybe it's better in hindsight, but I'm not quite sure like getting rid of a premium threat in Oko, a way that can actually win me the game, because I have a lot of like dead cards essentially. Like this Wasteland is kind of like a dead card based on what they've been doing so far. So like it's really difficult here, and these are like the hard decisions that maybe if I had practiced a bit more I could have made different. And based on the fact that they only have Island up, they've already fetched this turn. They decided, we don't know that they're going to force back. We don't know that. And once they force pitching Uro, it's like, well, the thing is we have to decide if we want to force pitching Force, or if we want to force pitching like an Oko or a Brainstorm. And all those things bring us down different paths, I think. And I think this path ended up being the wrong one now that I'm looking back at it. That I'm looking at all the things that happen. But like, if they don't force back and they just happen to have another rule spell, I think it's pretty bad for us. Because we have this like Force of Will that we're basically like, I guess we could like Force of Will and keep the Force Negation in our hand and just try to leave up Force Negation the next turn. But if we do that and they have like Abrupt Decay, then we basically like lost a turn cycle, because we can use this Brainstorm, but it's not the greatest. They get to develop more, and if they happen to have a second Uro, which I think they do, because of the fact that they're pitching the Uro, or they happen to have other removal spells, both of those ended up being like pretty bad for us. So like, it's possible that we just want to play the Force of Will, pitching the Oko, guarantee ourselves another, like, and just try and ride off the back of this Dreadful Darkness, and try and find like another Oko from the Ponder and the Brainstorm to make it sort of Wasteland actually is like a real land rather than just being like a do nothing. So those are all like possibilities. But I ended up letting it go because, you know, I force pitching the Forest. They have Ponder. I don't quite remember what happens the rest of this game besides the fact I play Oko, plus on it, pass. I know that I lose this game. I believe it ends up coming down to they have Oko, okay, sure. I plus, I end up drawing a couple lands, which sucks because this Wasteland is not something that I can ever like pick up with a Daze or something, and it's not like they're gonna let me Daze them anyways. But I deal with the Oko, I do this, okay. I'm willing to get rid of the Lightning Bolt and just try and go like, okay, hopefully they have nothing good in their hand, and I just get to start slamming with Oko plus Delver. But they have Uro. So I'm like, I'm pretty bad in this spot. But what is looking up for us is we have Oko. So Oko can deal with the Uro. Joke's on us. My opponent decides to stop playing around Daze and Assassin's Trophy the Oko immediately. So I'm like, okay, you know, we've got 2 more Okos in our deck. We can find it with some cantrips. I find Young Pyromancer. Not the greatest. I can possibly race, given if they just draw basically nothing, and they have nothing in their hand, and I can flip my Delvers. But you will find soon that this is not the case, because I completely forgot about that Dead of Winter. I remember I was very tilted about that Dead of Winter, but that Dead of Winter, you know, closed all avenues in winning this game. So let's go on 1 second. We're also playing a Modern Prelim at the same time, so I'm gonna shift it off to the side, make sure that I don't forget about that. Let's go on to game 2. What do we keep here in game 2? This is an opening hand that I keep. I think about it for a while. I'm just like, okay, this kind of sucks. This hand kind of sucks. Like, it really sucks. But, it overloads their removal spells, which I like. And I'm more than happy to Pyroblast like a cantrip on turn 1. So I'm just like, okay, if I just get to like Pyroblast cantrip and they don't have Astrolabe, and we get to like get a Dreadful Darkness down or get a Young Pyromancer down, draw like a cantrip, and like get off to the races, we're good. I think a while here, and I go like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna jam Dreadful Darkness because there are 2 things that can happen. 1, they kill my Dreadful Darkness, which I'm fine with because I don't actually have anything to do with it. 2, we find a cantrip. Dreadful Darkness is great. 3, we find nothing, basically, and we only lost 1 damage by not playing Young Pyromancer. And if they don't kill our Dreadful Darkness, and we find a cantrip, it's like pretty high upside for us. 3rd thing is we draw a land, and we get to like slam Oko, with them not having immediate Pyroblast up. And their mana is a little bit awkward, so they can't most likely kill our Oko along with killing our Dreadful Darkness. Now, once they played this ground seal, I was omega tilted. I was so pissed. How do I sideboard for this matchup? I decided to sideboard in 2 surgical extractions, 3 blasts, and 2 Cloithus, I believe. Take out all my forces. Then I took out the Chain Lightnings and 1 Preordain. I'm not sure if that's correct, but that's how I decided I wanted to do it. I'm not sure about surgicals. Obviously, once I see Ground Seal, I'm just like, I probably need to sideboard differently. But then I see... So Ground Seal makes it so cards and graveyards can't be the targets of spells or abilities. And that is big because it makes it so this card no longer works. Can't target the spells in my graveyard to flash them back. Clothis doesn't work, and Surgical Extraction doesn't work. So I'm like, okay. Like, my cards don't work anymore. This really sucks for me. But I've got Oko, so and Oko is busted. And then I look at Wombo's deck, and I look at his deck list, and I'm scrolling through, because I have to surgical because it doesn't like do anything, and they're playing Uro, so I have to like take some stuff out of their deck. I'm looking, I'm going like, okay, how many ground seals does he have? I see 2 Carpet of Flowers, 2 Sylvan Libraries, 2 Uro, or like 3 Uros left. I see an Uro in their hand. Where are the rest of the green cards? Where's the other ground seals? And then I see he only has 1 ground seal in his deck. And I get even more tilted. I'm just like, God, just 1 ground seal? He just has it? And I see some other cards like Felidar Retreat, Dead of Winter. I see his hands like stacked. But there is one thing that's going for me here. They don't have a 4th land, although they're going to cantrip here with Ground Seal and draw another card for their turn next turn. Most of their hand is blue cards, which I deal with easily with Pyroblast for at least a turn. I have an active Oko going, so I can put on some damage. They're not doing anything this turn, basically past this Ground Seal, because if they go fetch a white land, then I get to wasteland them. And if they don't draw land, they are screwed. Also, I can have the possibility of daze. So what is going for me here is I get to untap with an active Oko. I get to deal 4 damage immediately, essentially. Unless they want to go for a cheeky Swords of Plowshares into the open known wasteland. And if they choose to do that, we get to apply 3 more power onto the board if we draw a red source. And even if we don't draw a red source, we can still deploy all that power. And then basically whatever they cast, we can just Pyroblast the next turn. Like if they cast an Oko, we can either just let it stay, we can either just kill it, or we can let it stay there and Pyroblast it. We can do a lot of different things. Or we can just, you know, try and push face, try and hope their hand stays clunky for a turn or 2, hope we draw the goods to flip our Delver along with making our Young Pyromancer better. So those are our options. So when I was in the spot, I thought I'm just dead and thought about conceding. But then I thought about it a bit longer and I thought, okay, their mana is not great, especially playing into this wasteland. We have a lot of aggression going for us. They don't have an answer for our Oko. Some of their cards aren't actually really doing anything, and all of it is mana intensive for them. So with all those things being said, I think we're actually not in that bad of a spot. But we need to close out this game very quickly, because if we don't, and they get to deploy all the cards in their hand, we get into a very difficult situation. So we take the Ponders with the Surgical, take them out of the yard to make the Uro not as good. They get the Ground Seal. They've already played their land drop for the turn. And then I draw Brainstorm. So I can do a couple things here. I don't actually remember what I end up doing. I ended up brainstorming, so if I find a land, I can either leave up Pyroblast or play Delver's Secrets. I do find Basic Island. I believe with that, I play Delver because I can flip it. Plus on my food, attack for 4, putting them very heavy on the aggression. So they have to decide. They end up deciding to go fetch the Tundra, put me down 3 damage there. They draw Carpet of Flowers. So they drew for their draw steps, land, Carpet of Flowers. And I'm over the moon. I'm over the moon here. I'm just like, the 2 things that we needed to not happen, them get a lot of mana and make their hand not clunky. And they drew both of those things. So now they've got Okos they can deploy, they've got Uro they can deploy, they've got Leovold they can deploy, they can do all these things. So what do? They play Uro, Draw a card. I believe they play Oko afterwards. I'm surprised they played Uro first. What do they actually do here? Yeah, I'm surprised they play Uro first and not Oko to play around Daze, but, you know, it ends up happening. I flip my Delver, I ponder, look for some stuff. What do I find? I find a Lightning Bolt. I'm actually fine keeping Lightning Bolt. Wasteland, their Tundra. I have Pyroblast up. I plus on the elemental that I have, just pushing as much damage as possible. Pyroblast open. They basically can only resolve one of their blue spells this turn, and their mana is still a bit awkward, even through this Carpet of Flowers. They decide to Uro. I Pyroblast. They end up playing Leovold, plus on the food, bolt the Leovold, plus on Oko, killed. So this game looked really bad. Multiple turns in a row, some of the worst things that could have possibly happened to me, and I was still able to win. So that was really, really nice for me. I think I still had lethal even through them being able to play the Leovold. I was very happy that I ended up winning this game. Because I was like, okay, just calm down a bit, figure out what you need to do it, win the game. And, yeah, we'll be looking at the last game in just a moment. Moving on to our Game 3 versus Wombo. We're 1-1 right now. We're on the draw. As you can see, my opening hand originally had only Wasteland as the only land. So we mulliganed. What did I put back? Let me restart this, because I didn't see what card I put back. I definitely want to see what card it was. Make it so I give you full idea. So let's see. So our opening hand is, opening hand is just can't cast any card. So there's this. Yep, we have Preordained, Brainstorm, Daze, Oko, 3 lands. The fact that we have 2 cantrips, I'm just going to throw away a fetch land pretty easily here. Just move on with my life. This hand is pretty solid. It doesn't have a threat, but Preordained Brainstorm can find us something. They start with a Volk, and that makes me pretty happy because they started off with Astrolabe in the previous games, but didn't start off with Astrolabe here. It makes it so my Wastelands have actual targets and their mana isn't going to be perfect, and especially starting with this, they can't Swords of Plowshares off of it. Means there's a guarantee no turn to Abrupt Decay, even though I don't actually have a threat. 1 land Ponder, and drew green for Carpet. Ugh. That's a tilt turn. But yeah, so this is, we also have Wombo combo, the person we played against in the chat. Apparently he kept a 1-lander with Ponder, which is a tilter. But, so, now with this hand, we're obviously just going to play Volk, Preordain, try and find some stuff. What do we see here? Off the Preordain, Cloythus, Flooded Strand. And I decide to settle in for a long game with our cantrips, take the 3rd land, take the Cloythus, however you want to say. Just top both of them, and move on. And go okay. With them starting with Volcanic Island, they're probably going to have a slowish start as well, because their hand doesn't seem very functional. The Ponder's obviously looking for some stuff. They chose not to shuffle, but doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be doing anything too important. They played Carpet of Flowers. I'm just devastated. So I was like, my Wastelands aren't going to do anything. They're going to have infinite mana. We're going to feel pretty bad this game. And then not only do they play Carpet of Flowers, they then play Sylvan Library, another card that's great against me, and I need to daze this, with the hope that their hand is just very clunky, and basically just has a lot of lands that are Carpet of Flowers, maybe needs to get them there, maybe they have a lot of lands, and they can't really cast any spells, because they don't have any spells to cast. They only have 4 cards in hand. If I let them out Sylvan Library, there's no way we're winning. So even though it takes us down a bit here, we have to play it. We have to daze it, I think. I play Flooded Strand instead of this land, and don't Preordain, because of the fact that it stops Carpet of Flowers from getting extra mana. And if they have a 3-drop they need to play but don't have the lands, this can stunt their growth, and I can play fetch land, and then go fetch for everything, play Oak or play Clothis, and hope that will get me there. But it does not quite play out that way. They instead decide to do this, see if I'll fetch or not. They pass with fetch land. I play fetch land again, pass. Oh no, I actually decide to go for Dreadhorde Arcanist here. I forgot because of the fact that I forgot that I drew Dreadhorde Arcanist here. So I went for it because we only give them 1 extra mana. They weren't doing anything on 3 lands. We have Mountain to go get to stop their Carpet of Flowers from getting too much mana. And the fact that they didn't do anything last turn either means they're playing around Daze, which we don't have, so it doesn't really matter, because they're going to be casting their spell next turn anyways. Or 2, they have no land, or they have no actual spell to play. That matters. Both of which make me want to do this. So it's pretty clear-cut Dreaded Arcanist here. They also happen to have an answer for it, or else they'll, you know, just take away the game. And then we're also, you know, backing up with 3 drops that are very good as well. Thank you for the raid, Doomwake. Finishing up our commentary of our match 2 of our Mox event. And then they decide to fetch for an Underground Sea on the end step, which is weird, rather than doing it on their upkeep. I thought they were going to be casting like Fatal Push or Cling or something. Now they've got all their mana except for white. But I assume with them doing this that they either have like a basic land plus Astrolabe, or white mana doesn't matter, or they just have another fetch land to go get white mana. It turns out they have the worst possible card for me, which they only have as a 1-of, which is this Ground Seal. This Ground Seal now makes it so my Klothys is bad, and my Dreaded Arcanist is bad. I have exactly this Oko left, but they tapped Volcanic Island. So this gives me a glimmer of hope. Since they tapped Volcanic Island, it gives me a glimmer of hope that they don't have Pyroblast or Red Blast to stop my Oko. Gives me a tiny bit of a chance to possibly still win this game. And the 1 point for Dreaded Arcanist possibly can start doing some stuff, but it turns off a lot of our cards. For Dreaded Arcanist, 2 Klothys, 2 Surgical Extraction. What we do have going for us, we've got this Oko, we've got this Brainstorm. This Brainstorm can possibly fix our hand in some way. We're essentially saying, by playing our land, playing Oko, you can have as much mana as you want, I don't care, there's no way that I can stop you. And it turns out, they've got Abrupt Decay for Oko, so that's no good. They have what turns out to be another Astrolabe. So now we've got nothing going for us. We need to hope this Brainstorm can find us some goods because we are flooding out. Didn't find us the greatest stuff possible. But once I see this Volcanic Island, you may ask, like, why did I not play my Narset out? I saw they have Volcanic Island open this turn when they didn't have it last turn. That makes me think that they probably drew a Pyroblast off of some of their lands or something, so I want to like slow roll this Narset if possible. Although probably in hindsight, I think I should have just jammed the Narset, because if they have Pyroblast, I don't think I'm winning anyways. So I think I should have just jammed it, because if they have it, I'm probably dead anyways. Because my hand is pretty bad. I didn't have a fetch effect to get rid of all those extra lands. This Brainstorm's not necessarily going to get me there. So we decide not to play out the Narset again. I'm hoping to flip these Delvers, kill the Oko the next turn, and hope that that's going to be good enough for me. And then, like, use the Delvers to keep back the Arkham's Astrolabes that are going to be into 3/3s. Use Narset to stop them from drawing cards and try and, like, find some way to win the game from there. That was my hope. And then this happens, and I concede the game, because my Delvers don't do anything. They've got Oko. My Narset's not going to stop anything, because they're going to have multiple 3/3s. I can't protect it in any way. And that's just going to be the game. So, like, this matchup, I think, is not great for me, because game 1s are difficult. If we're on the play, sometimes we get them with, like, Wasteland and stuff. We've got a good chunk of answers post-board. But this card, Ground Seal, they only have it as a 1-of. But the fact that they drew it both post-board games made it very, very difficult to win those games. And I think this card was integral to them winning this game. If they did not have that, I think we go away with the game with our Klothys, our Dreaded Arcanist, all that stuff. But that Ground Seal, that was the ticket for them. And yeah, we'll be going over the next matches in another video. I want to break this up so that it's not too long. I want to go over in depth and how I'm feeling about all these things. But if you're watching this video and you want to see the next ones, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video if you liked the commentary at all. And we're going to be continuing all the way up until the top 4 that I end up getting, that I end up losing. But I do want to like go over these games, and I think it's important and good to look at them. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.